sugar. You do it on the tray so that if something spills over the edge, it's contained and it's an easy cleanup. If you're going to do things like sort your medication, and if anyone uses a pill sorter, the weekly pill minders, if you drop a pill and it rolls, it'll stay on the tray. You won't have to go down on the floor on your hands and knees looking for it. Because sometimes if you're like me, you can't get back up. So keep in mind these trays, you can get them maybe at the dollar store or at Gordon Food Outlet, or you can get them online at Amazon. And they're inexpensive and they're very useful. So first thing about organization is marking things. And there's several ways to do it. And one is by what's known as bump dots. I'm holding up a sheet of paper and it has different bump dots on it. I'm going to try and bring it close to the camera. But they come in colors like black, orange, clear, little foamy ones that are called touch dots. Those come in a variety of colors. And there's little tiny ones called spotters that are good for things like cell phones or laptop computers or regular keyboards. They give you just a small indentate or like a dimple to feel that particular key. You can also mark your TV remotes with those. So you can order those from any of the catalog companies that are out there, such as Maxi Aids, or Independent Living Aids, or LS&S Products, and you can find them by just Googling those names. So marking things such as the on button for your microwave, or your digital oven, or put it on the 5 on your remote so you can find the keypad, that makes life a little easier. And one thing we want to do is learn enough techniques and skills that make our lives easier. When you're marking, using a heavy marker, such as a Bold Rider 20 that we have in our store, or you can also get these online from the catalog companies. And they're a little bit heavier than a pen, but they don't bleed through the paper. So you can mark things in a heavier print and find things easier if your vision is such that a darker, bolder letter is more attractive to you. So if you're home filing and you've got the hanging file folders, sometimes just taping a note card to the file with big letters, this is marked bills, and I'm holding one of those hanging files. And instead of the little plastic tags with the tiny letters on it, you can just make your own file folder label. There's also things called Puffy Paint, or you can go to the fabric store and get the raised fabric paint. And these you can mark items with a line that you leave you leave it overnight for it to dry, and as it dries, it puffs up a little bit, so you can feel it. So tactily, you can rub your finger over something and feel that raised print or raised number or letter, and it makes it easier to find. They come in colors such as black, white, fluorescent orange. They come in a tube like this. And I'm holding up 2 tubes, one with a fluorescent yellow paint, and it has a screw-on cap. And the end is a lot like eye drops. It's very thin, so it leaves a thin line, and you can go over your line a couple times. You can mark things like measuring cups. You can mark measuring spoons. People will put a 1 dot on the 1 cup and put 2 dots on a half a cup, and put 4 dots on the 1/4 cup, and 3 dots on the 1/3 cup. So you can just tactily feel what size measuring cup you're using, and you can use the same code for measuring spoons. The one thing you want to remember when you're marking things is to keep it simple so it's easy to remember when you go back a week later and touch something, you know what it is that you've marked and why you've marked it. If you have keys and you want to distinguish between the keys if they're all shaped the same, sometimes you can go to the key shop and they will put a colored insert on a key. Sometimes you can go to a key shop and get a key that's a longer key, and they would sometimes come with a design printed on them. So if you're hanging all your keys and then one key sticks out longer, you can feel that and use that for like your door key. They have little rubber rings you can stick around the head of the key and in different colors. And sometimes just marking the one key with the rubber ring makes it easy to identify that particular key you want to use. In addition to bump dots and the puffy paint, you can use things like Velcro, and that's like a buy one, get one, because a Velcro has two sides, the bristly side and the soft side. And you can mark things, you can buy a Velcro patch and they're sticky on both sides, so you can just stick it to what you need it. You can also cut it to the shape that you want. And that comes, those come in like black and white, and they come in other colors? Velcro? Probably not, but no. So this is an example of square Velcro dots I'm holding up. They come in a package. You can get them at the fabric store or at Michael's or at Walmart in their craft department, the Dollar Tree. And these have a box, and there's 8 squares, and you get a couple sheets of these. So they stick, and then you've got your Velcro ready to mark. Some people can use sandpaper, those little sanding pads that you peel and stick on your sander. You can use those to cut into pieces in specific shapes and stick the sandpaper on things, and that gives you a different texture to feel. So if you're going to use the sandpaper with that rough texture, and then you've got the Velcro with the 2 different textures, and the puffy paint and bump dots, tactily you have a variety of things to use to identify your items. When you're organizing in your kitchen, you want to make sure of a few things. But before you get into the kitchen, when you're looking around your house, you want to make sure everything's got a specific place. And you want to keep things in the same place. And always put things back immediately when you're done using them. That way you don't leave them on a table and forget they're there, and then you knock it over later on, or you go looking for that item and it's not where you think it was. So when you're done with something, put it back in its usual spot. You can hang a hook by your door to hang your keys on. You can put a little dish on the table by your entry door and put your keys in there, but use it all the time. Some people keep them, if you're using a purse, there's purse hooks where you can hook your keys over the edge of your purse, and you can just feel that hook and know your keys are in its spot. But always do it in the same place all the time. We waste enough time looking for things that are misplaced or that we don't see. So make things simple for yourself. And then remind your friends and family to put things back where you found them or where they found them, because that makes it easier for you again, and then it makes you happy to welcome them back into your home. When you also want to remember when you're opening a drawer to shut it immediately, when you're in a cupboard or a cabinet, make sure you shut the door immediately when you're done. Push your chairs in when you leave the table, and also, you know, remind your friends and family to do the same thing. They may be able to see an open door or an open drawer, but you can't. So let's eliminate the pain of running into something sharp and open. When you're in the kitchen, you also want to extend that to the oven door, the microwave door, the dishwasher. So just be mindful and remind your friends and family to be mindful too, to keep things shut when they're done in that particular area. When you're using your knives in the kitchen, have a designated place to put them when you're not using them. After you've used them and before you wash them, you can stick them behind your faucet, blade side down. And then when you go to wash them, the dishes, you know right where they are. You're not going to have any surprises in the dishwater. When you're done, have a designated place for them, whether they're in a knife block or you have a sheath for the knives or a specific drawer that they'll go in. And again, you don't want to run into knives that are misplaced in your drawers. When you have friends and family over for a meal or something and they want to help you clean up afterwards, it's perfectly all right to tell them no, thank you. It's also perfectly all right to assign them a job, such as washing or drying the dishes. Then you can put things away where you want to make sure you find them. Or you can give them specific directions, like put those dishes on the second shelf on the left-hand side, and the glasses go in the far right cupboard on the fourth shelf, and glasses to the left and mugs and cups to the right. That way you've got a chance of finding it after the meal is. I know of someone that had their family over for dinner and they insisted on cleaning up after the meal, and it took her a month to find the salad dressings and to find the spices and things that they would have put away. Something she's still looking for. She has given up on finding them. You can get baskets of any size, and I'm holding up a little basket right now. This is about the size of a 4x6, and it's got little handles on the side, and it's about 3 inches deep. And it's good for putting small items in. You can use baskets to hold your spices in. And if you want to alphabetize your spices and mark the basket on which letters are in that basket for the spices, you can do that. Some people keep spices according to how they use them. I'm better with alphabetical things than grouping them like that. But that's a good way to hold your spices. Somebody came up with the idea when they have a recipe, they buy all the non-perishable foods. They'll put the items for that particular recipe in a grocery bag, tie it off, put the recipe with it, and stick it in the cupboard. That way they know they have everything for the recipe in the cupboard. Then they just have to add the fresh ingredients. You can also organize your cupboards with canned fruit on one shelf, canned vegetables on another, canned beans somewhere else, canned soups. Your pasta's in a different cupboard, rice, keep things together. Keep a shelf for your baking supplies. So there's many ways to do it when you organize. Kind of make it organic to yourself, intuitive, how you reach for things, what's used most often. Keep them handier. Things that you don't use as often, you don't want to keep moving out of the way to get to what you need. So organize your cupboard that way. And you may have to try it a couple times just to see what works best for you. We're going to mark cans in several ways. Some people get a 3x5 card, punch a hole in it and put a rubber band on it, and they'll mark it. Like this can is tomato soup, and there is it's laminated 3x5 card, but it's got TOM and then soup. So I can look at that, it's in big letters, and I can look at that and say, oh, tomato soup, and I know I can grab that, and I've got tomato soup in there. Now that will take some organization when you get your groceries in. So if somebody is there to help you, or you have a way to identify the cans to put the labels on, that helps a lot. You can also shake the can and kind of hear what the contents are. Soup may be a little thicker sound, or tomato paste wouldn't have any sound, or fruit might be all sloshy inside when you shake the can. So that can kind of give you an idea what the contents could be if you didn't mark the can. I'm sorry?
You pull the tags off, you can use them to shop.
Oh yeah. Terry over here suggested that we can also, when you use the can, when you take the tag off, you can use that as a sort of a shopping list. So you keep your tags in one spot, and then you know you need to replace your tomato soup or your tomato paste or your crushed pineapple. So that makes it a lot easier when you want to go to the store again. Organizing. Sometimes you can find bins with little tiny containers inside. And if you want to hold things like your rubber bands, your paper clips, binder clips, this set of drawers has the items hot glue gunned to the outside of the container. So when you open it up, the container, that item is in it. Like this one has a binder clip hot glued to the outside, and inside are little binder clips. And then this one has a paper clip hot glue gun to it. So inside you have all your paper clips. So when you get a paper clip loose, you can stick it in this little container and you know everything's in its place. And you can just do that all the way through with your items. And it's this way you've got your tiny items like for your home office in one spot. Okay. If you have questions on any of this stuff, try and remember it so at the end you can bring it up again. Or if you have suggestions, we're open to that too. A lot of people find ways to organize their things that we haven't thought of, so we're always welcome to new ideas. When you're organizing your personal care items, one item I didn't mention as far as marking things is the ever popular rubber band. And I've got one on my wrist, and it's one of the wide ones. So if you've got shampoo in the shower, put a rubber band around the shampoo. That way, when your eyes are full of water, you can just reach down, feel for the bottle that has the rubber band on it, and you know that's your shampoo. If you're going to use a hair conditioner, then you don't need to put a rubber band on that bottle. So you won't mistake the shampoo and the hair conditioner. The body wash too, if you're going to use that, keep it in a different size bottle. Maybe you want to put 2 rubber bands on the body wash. Whatever system you use, keep it simple, keep it consistent, and that'll make it very much easier to use. And you can just automatically reach and touch for the bottle with the rubber band on it and know that's your shampoo. When you're organizing, what am I missing?
You're talking about using the trays and always getting what you need.
Yes.
For whatever task.
When you're cooking something, you can get the tray and put your items on it that you're going to use for that particular recipe. So if you're making cookies, you can put your flour, your sugar, the salt, the vanilla, your baking powder, you know, your flavorings, coloring, whatever, on your tray. And that way you get everything out before you start cooking. So you know where things are, they're in the same place, and you can go through your recipe much faster. Same thing if you're going to like cook with cut up vegetables and stuff, you know, cut them up, put them in a bowl, stick them on the tray. Things are in the same place. They're easy to find. You're not going all over the kitchen looking for things. And going through my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Also, when you're cooking, keep the lid of the pan nearby what you're cooking so that should an unfortunate event happen, like your item catches fire, you can just cover that pan with the matching lid, and that'll smother the fire right away. Yeah, cleaning, we all love to clean. So ways to make it easier. Say, for example, you're wiping down a counter. I suggest going in two directions. You know, maybe start from left to right and wipe in one direction off to your left, and then you can wipe vertically towards yourself, and that way you've got a good chance of covering the whole area. And if you're doing a table or a countertop, it's been suggested to use a dry cloth after you've wiped it down with your damp cloth and kind of polish the table or polish the countertop, and that'll catch any spots you might have missed. It'll dry off the counter so you can use it more quickly. When you're sweeping the floor or mopping the floor, use kind of a grid pattern, and you can do it in sections. And again, go horizontally and then go vertically. And you've got a better chance after going over it twice to get all the stuff that might be on the floor. And if you're going to use a grid pattern, make sure you overlap the edges. If you're looking for something on the table, a search method is to get your hands in front of you and kind of finger crawl forward. And then you can go in an arc, go forward a little bit and kind of arc around, and then bring them back together, go forward a little bit more and go in an arc, and keep doing that until you find something. The reason you want to keep your hands on the table, especially if you have tall glasses or a vase in the center of the table or condiments sitting there, if you're waving your hand over something hoping to find that tall glass, the odds are really good that you might knock it over instead when you're finding it. So you don't want to spill your drinks, you don't want to knock over the flowers, you don't want to knock over the condiments. So if you keep your hands on the table and do the finger crawl forward to find the item, you're going to touch it with your finger, and then you can reach for it and see what you've got. If you drop something on the floor, keep your hand on the edge of the counter or the table, your non-dominant hand on the edge of the counter or table, and then reach down with your dominant hand. You're going to keep your hand on the edge there so that when you stand up, you don't hit your head on the edge of the counter. You kind of have an idea where that is. If you've dropped something on the floor, and when you drop something anywhere, just kind of keep an ear out and listen for how it falls and where it rolls or where it bounces. And that'll give you a good idea which direction to start looking for it in the first place. If you drop something on the floor and you're confident to get back up, you can use your hands again in a grid pattern and look for it on the floor. Otherwise, you can stand up and start with your feet together and then move your non-dominant foot out and sweep it towards your foot that's planted on the ground. And you might want to hang on to something to keep your balance. But once you bring your foot back to your stationary foot, then step forward about a half a step and repeat that process again until you found what's been dropped on the floor. And again, try a grid pattern if you don't find it right away. And let me see. When you organize